I craved you. I've missed you. Welcome to the Pixel Pop Movie Podcast. I'm your host this fortnight, Toby. With me this fortnight, I'm joined by the chewed under the armpit and dragged into a sewer pipe, Ethan.
We all float down here.
Nice. And the has a rather odd smile and likes red balloons, Lucas.
Let's kill this fucking clown.
Nice. So the topic of conversation, or one of this fortnight, of course, is It Chapter 2. We've all seen the film. We're going to be doing some spoiler-free and then spoiler reviews of the film, but we'll have plenty of warning before we jump into spoilers in case you haven't seen it. And the other topic of conversation for this fortnight is what makes scary films scary? And that's a kind of a broad subject, and I'm sure we're going to get some varied opinions, but it could be an interesting discussion, so I'm looking forward to that. But before we jump into any of that, we've got a bit of news this week, so please take us away, Ethan.
We're going to start with trailers first this week, and we had a trailer for Between Two Ferns, the movie. Something that just came out of nowhere, no one knew it was in production. Netflix.
No, they announced this a while ago.
Oh, I remember hearing about it.
I mean, if you know the Between Two Ferns, like if you follow that type of shit, which I do, because that show is hilarious. But Galifianakis said that he was working on a movie a while ago, but no one really knew how it was going to work.
I didn't hear that.
Until the trailer came out, no one had any idea how the project was going to work. Because in Between Two Ferns, it's just an interview show. But now we know.
But anyway, so they're doing that. It's coming on Netflix this Friday. It has celebrity cameos that include Matthew McConaughey, Will Ferrell, Peter Dinklage, Benedict Cumberbatch, Paul Rudd, Tiffany Haddish, Brie Larson, Keanu Reeves, John Hamm, David Letterman, Adam Scott, John Cho, among many more.
On and on and
There's
on.
a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah. I got to admit, the Brie Larson bit of the trailer cracked me up.
Next, we had a trailer for Bad Boys for Life.
Oh my god!
Yep.
I'm so excited for this.
Next, we had a trailer for Just Mercy, starring Brie Larson, Michael B. Jordan, and Jamie Foxx. Directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who is the upcoming director of Shang-Chi.
Yeah, the cast in this looks really good, and
based on a true story as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's based on a true story.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I've always liked the courtroom sort of drama shows, so this would be good.
Next, we had a trailer for The King, starring Timothée Chalamet
and Ben
Mendelsohn and Robert Pattinson. I haven't seen the trailer for this. I haven't watched it.
Okay, it's Henry the
Fifth.
One of the eighth, one of them.
Fifth.
I don't know. One of the King Henrys, and it's sort of his story, and it's a period piece. Some good cast, some great looking costumes. Sets look alright. It's gonna hit Netflix, and I mean, if you're into period pieces, you're going to watch it. And it's another excuse to check out Pattinson not being a glittery vampire and showing that he can actually act, which I know he can.
When is this out?
It's very soon. It's like next month.
October 11th, yeah.
Yeah, very soon.
Written by Joel Edgerton.
Yeah, who I think is also in it as well. Yeah.
Joel Edgerton's in it. He produced it along with Brad Pitt as well. And Joel Edgerton was a co-writer.
That's really cool. I didn't know.
Yeah, it looks good.
We had a trailer for Dr. Sleep, the final trailer before that hit cinemas on November 8th.
Yep, looking forward to that.
I'll be honest, like there's nothing that's been really in the first couple of trailers that's grabbed me, but this latest one, I was like, holy shitting my way through the whole thing. So
I hope it's because they're keeping, like, you know how some trailers just go, and here's the whole movie, and then you think, what's the fucking point? And I think there's other trailers where they sort of keep their cards close to their chest, and I'm really hoping that's the case with Dr. Sleep, where we're not going to show you a great deal, go see the movie. I hope.
But yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. I'm really excited for this.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we had a trailer for The Lighthouse, starring Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson.
I gotta say, I mean, this came out of nowhere until Lucas was like, you need to watch this trailer. And then I watched that trailer and went, toot toot, all aboard the Lucas hype train.
Yeah, man.
This looks amazing.
It's getting early award buzz, which is crazy too. Like Dafoe and Pattinson are both getting crazy good reviews for this movie, and then as well, they think the movie could possibly be up for a bunch of technical awards as well as like Best Picture. So, yeah, I'm really excited for this. It looks cool.
So super keen. If you haven't watched the trailer, do yourself a favor and, head over to the article, scroll down, look for the trailer and click it because it's worth a watch. Anyway, moving along.
Today we had The Battle at Big Rock. Released a short film set in the Jurassic World universe, pretty much Jurassic World 2.5, which was written and directed by Colin Trevorrow.
Yeah, this was cool. I watched it this afternoon.
But does it have Jeff Goldblum in it though?
No.
Well, I'm not watching it.
But it takes place a year after the events of Fallen Kingdom.
And it pretty much sets up 3, doesn't it?
So, and it helps basically set the stage for what's going to happen in Jurassic Park 3. It's only about 8.5 minutes, but man, it's intense. It's really cool.
And finally for trailers, we had a trailer for Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan Season 2.
Yep.
Which I'm sure Toby's the only one that really cares about that.
That's a good series, man. If you haven't watched the first one, it doesn't hug the books too closely, and the acting. I mean, you're familiar with the lead actor, of course.
Well, John Krasinski's a hack, so I won't watch it.
Ooh. This has also got Noomi Rapace, can never pronounce her name properly, in it, as well as a few other faces. Yeah, there's a few other faces and names in this season, so Amazon's obviously dumping the money into this one, and then trailer looks pretty good. And again, this kind of genre and story is my jam, so I binged the shit out of season 1, and I'm keen for season 2. Bring it on.
Yeah, I need to sit down and watch the first season. I was looking forward to it for a long time, but it's one of those things that just kind of gets put on the list and then just keeps moving down the list because other shit keeps coming out.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I've just put on my list and still haven't started yet, out of nowhere, the Sacha Baron Cohen spy flick on Netflix.
Yes.
Did you see the trailers? Because, I mean, how long have we been saying, I know Jesse and I in particular, like, holy shit, we'd love to see Sacha Baron Cohen in a real role where he's not trying to be a comedian. And then in this drop that I saw the trailer, I was like, this is it. This is the crowning moment. And I just have not had the time to watch it yet. All right, move us along, Ethan.
Surely we should be getting Man in the High Castle season 4 trailer soon. Because that's coming out this year.
Yeah, I hope so.
4th and final season.
Mm-hmm.
Next we have Will Poulter has been cast in the Lord of the Rings series.
Yep.
For Amazon.
Yep.
A lot of rumors going around that he's a young Elrond.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. Facially,
and Elrond
he's got similar features to old mate. So
Hugo.
Yeah, he could probably do that.
Yeah,
Elrond is alive and kicking it in that time period too. So I mean, if he is, that's a big cast right there. Next we have the Joker with the Golden Lion, which I guess is one of their highest prizes at the Venice Film Festival.
Yeah, so the Golden Lion at Venice Film Festival is essentially the Palme d'Ors from Cannes. Like, it's one of the highest claim awards that a movie can win on a festival circuit. The Golden Lion is only behind the Palme d'Ors. So, yeah, this is huge. Comic book movie has never won this award, let alone like very limited American films have won this award. So I think it's maybe only 3 or 4 in the past 15 years have won it. Everything else has been foreign. It's been like French or German or something like that. So like the fact that not only an English speaking film won, but it also has to do with the Joker. It's just insane. So
next we have Marvel Studios is eyeing Haley Steinfeld for Kate Bishop in the Hawkeye series for Disney Plus. This is a big get if it's true.
Yeah, like she's a massive name too. So like having her attached to not only like just a Marvel project, but something that's going to be on the streaming service, like that's going to be a huge pull for people to get them on board.
I mean, she's already attached to a Marvel project already, so this is another one for her.
Wait, what other Marvel projects are you attached to?
She was Gwen Stacy in Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah, but no, I mean like Marvel. I mean like MCU. Yeah, no, it's going to be cool. Good for her. Get that money. Get that Marvel money.
Next, we have Chiwetel Ejiofor is to play the villain in a Mark Wahlberg action thriller called Infinite, which will star Mark Wahlberg and Dylan O'Brien, who was seen in... He was start off in Teen Wolf and he was in the Maze Runner movies.
Yeah.
So there are 2 leads. So yeah, Chiwetel Ejiofor plays the villain while Mark Wahlberg and Dylan O'Brien are the leads. Also cast in that is Rupert Friend and Jason Mantzoukas.
Cool.
Right, but we have no idea what it's about yet.
No, it's based on a book called The Reincarnationist Papers. It follows a man who discovers that his hallucinations are actually visions from his past lives.
Okay.
So I bet that it's either Dylan O'Brien's the lead and he has visions of Mark Wahlberg or vice versa, something like that. Maybe these other two, Jason Mantzoukas, are like his past life or something like that. I don't know. All right, next we have The Witcher release date may have accidentally been revealed.
Netflix have refuted this publicly.
Yeah.
So whether they're just trying to like hush, no, that's not true. But yeah.
Yeah. So one of theirs.
Could you imagine? Because they're just like, yeah, it's all bullshit because we're gonna drop it all now. Just to beat the rumor.
Yeah. So it's coming out December 17th. No, it's not. It's
not. It still could drop on December 17th, and maybe week to week, and not as a binge watch, which is entirely possible. They want to experiment with that, so that could be why I said it to drop week to week over Christmas. Might work. Only 8 episodes a season.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah. Next we have Michael Fassbender, a star in Taika Waititi's soccer movie Next Goal Wins. You shut your fucking mouth with that, Michael Fassbender.
He's a hack.
You fucker. Fucking hell. But anyway, it's what's the movie about? It is based on the 2014 British documentary. Underdog story follows the national football team of America Samoa and their coach as they try to transform from losers into a squad that qualifies for the FIFA World Cup.
Right.
Yeah.
Boring. Yeah, just fucking.
He co-wrote the screenplay with Ian Morris and Andy Serkis.
Yeah, cool.
Ian Morris. Andy Serkis is producing it. Sorry.
Hard pass.
And I think he's doing this.
Andy Serkis is a hack.
Oh, don't you fucking start. You know who's not a hack? Tim Burton. He's fucking great.
Biggest hack on the planet.
Oh, I like it. Good stuff.
Okay, moving on from that, the final bit of news we have is we got a cast for The Suicide Squad, the news movie that James Gunn is directing.
Yeah,
now,
this cast is huge.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, Guns are. I was going to say before we get into it as well, Gunn's already confirmed that like it's going to have a high kill count, so don't count on a lot of these people being in the movie very long.
And he also said that a lot of the actors who are rumored for certain characters is false as well, even from like news things like Variety and Deadline. He said don't believe them because that a lot of them aren't true as well. All right, so David Dastmalchian is rumored for Polka Dot Man. John Cena, who's rumored for Peacekeeper, which was apparently up. Dave Bautista's up for the role as well. Jai Courtney, who we know as Captain Boomerang, he's returning. Jacqueline Cossio, I don't know who he is. Nathan Fillion, we don't know who his role is, but people want him as Booster Gold. We'll see.
There was a rumor going around that he could possibly be showing up as Green Lantern.
That as well, yep. Joel Kinnaman is returning as Rick Flag. Mei Ling, she was in Wonder Woman as one of the Amazonians. Could be the same role, we don't know. Frula Borg, no one knows who he's playing. Sean Gunn will probably be a CGI character. Joan de we don't know. Storm Reed is playing, we don't know who she's playing, but she's playing Idris Elba's daughter. I think Idris Elba could actually be playing Bronze Tiger, but we never know. Pete Davidson, who's from Saturday Night Live. Taika Waititi's in it. Alice Braga. Steve Agee, who's rumoured for the voice of King Shark. Tinashe Kajisi, don't know who she's playing. Danielle Melchior. Peter Capaldi.
Doctor
Good to see for him. He said that he had to shave all his hair off and he's getting prosthetics put on his head for his role. That's all he can say. Julia Reyes. Jennifer Holland, who's James Gunn's girlfriend, she's in it. Viola Davis returning as Amanda Waller. Idris Elba as someone we don't know. Margot Robbie returning as Harley Quinn, and then Michael Rooker, because it can't be a Gunn movie without Rooker.
So it's just half of the Marvel cast and some new people.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, Idris is playing Heimdall, right? Because, fuck it, why not?
Yeah, he's into another universe.
Yeah, Rooker's just playing, old mate with the blue head. Let's do it.
So yeah, that's the cast.
Nice. Well, there's still one or two bits of news. I think Lucas said he's got something he wants to share with us.
Yeah,
There was,
There was a couple of pieces of comic book news that come out in the last couple of days. Probably the biggest one to, in my opinion, we've been talking about the Robert Pattinson Batman for a little while, and on the latest Fat Man Beyond podcast with Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin, Kevin Smith actually confirmed that he'd heard through a source that the Batman film is going to be adapting The Long Halloween, which for one explains why they're going young with casting Batman, because that's a very, very early story in the mythos of Batman, where a lot of the supervillains start to get created. And pretty much, I think that story is one of the big storylines where they go through the backstory of Two-Face. So we could be possibly getting Two-Face again in the films. It also has the introductions of characters like Clayface and Calendar Man and a couple of other characters that we really haven't seen on the big screen before. So hopefully those guys will get their chance to shine. There was another piece of news tied to that as well, that the movie's due to start filming in November in England. So that's the first one. And then the second one is that there are massive rumors doing the rounds at the minute regarding mutants and how they're going to be handled. And two names that have popped up in the past couple of days is either Denzel Washington or Giancarlo Esposito for Magneto.
Wow, okay, yeah, I could actually see Denzel Washington having a crack at Magneto. That'd be interesting. You'd have to change his backstory slightly so that instead of being persecuted in World War II as a Jew, he has to be, I guess, persecuted in America for being African American, perhaps?
So that's exactly what I think what they're going with. So the big rumor at the minute doing the round specifically with the mutants is that they're looking specifically for Professor X and Magneto to be people of color. So,
right. And then instead of watching his parents get taken away from him in a concentration camp, they're like lynched or something. And
very well could be the case.
Yeah, all right, that's an interesting spin.
Yeah, and it's fresh. Like, you know, how many times have we seen the backstory of Magneto? You know, how many times we've seen the backstory of Professor X? It's a way to change it up for sure. And Giancarlo Esposito, who's Gus from Breaking Bad, he's been in talks with Marvel for a little while for a role. But very much in the vein of Keanu Reeves, they haven't really been able to find anything specifically for him because they know they want him. It's just a matter of kind of finding the role for the person and not just saying, hey, we'll just throw you in here just to have you.
Yeah.
So personally, I would love to see Giancarlo Esposito as Magneto because if you've seen Breaking Bad, you just know how maniacal he is and can turn up the crazy. But at the same time, like imagining Denzel Washington go full training day on Magneto, it just has my it tickles my cockles. So very, very interesting rumors.
Well, I got a couple of little tidbits before we move into the reviews. One was some news that was sad for me. Obviously, you guys weren't familiar with it. And that was the deal between international best-selling author Raymond Feist and BCDF Pictures has fallen through. BCDF had basically picked up the rights for the Rift War saga, Magician, Silverthorn, Darkness at Sethanon, very famous fantasy series of novels, and we're going to produce a TV series, and unfortunately that deal has fallen through. So that's a bit sad, because I'd really like to see some sort of film or screen adaptation in my lifetime. But Feist is a bit of a perfectionist, and he's very much, clings to his work, and that's fine, but it's sort of the same thing with Tolkien. I think he would have had a hard time making Lord of the Rings if Tolkien was still alive, and I get the feeling it might be a bit similar with Feist's work. You know, you're probably more likely to see it when he's passed away and it's handed down to the estate. But anyway, so that's sad.
Well, the other thing with that too, I'd imagine he'd be feeling the same way that George R.R. Martin would have felt seeing the last seasons of Game of Thrones.
Absolutely. Yeah, no criticism on Feist here.
He probably, Feist probably, we don't actually know what the situation was. It was just that
he didn't stay.
Whatever happened, the production company and Feist have agreed to part ways. Whether it was something on Feist's end or whether it was something on the production company's end, I don't think we'll ever know.
No.
But I'm likely to think that he kind of wants it to be his way or the highway, especially with just how much of a perfectionist he's known for being.
Yeah.
And they're no, we have to do it this certain way, and he just didn't want it.
Yeah, he's said in the past that he's been approached numerous times over the decades, and he's just a case of, I think he has a vision and he's waiting for someone that has that same vision. So anyway, the other bit I had just quickly was I put up a poll on a Facebook page after the last podcast, and just threw the question out to listeners and readers saying, do they think that Marvel has explained the impact of the snap and blip on and the effect it had on Earth to their satisfaction? 75% said no, 25% said yes. So that doesn't mean that they're not. I mean, there's still obviously room for, as we discussed last podcast, for Marvel to go on and do further exploration and show more and further films. But it's just at the moment, our audiences anyway, feel that that hasn't been covered enough or explained enough to their satisfaction. That's interesting. All right, let's move on into It Chapter 2, which debuted in cinemas Thursday week past. We've all had the opportunity to go and see it at the cinema now, and we'll start with spoiler-free thoughts. Which of you gentlemen would like to go first? All right,
I'll let Ethan.
Ethan, off you go.
Me? Spoiler free?
Spoiler-free.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed the first one a lot more. I didn't think anything about this part 2 was scary at all. Not that there was really much scary about the first part. This one was just not as much. Too much comedy for my liking for that sort of movie. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Lucas?
Yeah, so I think the general consensus I've seen through a lot of my friends is that they thought that the first one was better than the second. And I do agree, but it doesn't mean the second one was bad. Like, I still enjoyed the second one for what it was.
No, it's not bad. Not a bad one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not saying you said that, but like, the big thing is that a lot of people seem to have gotten a lot more scares out of the first one, which, I mean, like, I think this last, like, when we've talked about it in the past, for some reason I'm just immune to horror movies. Like, I don't get jump scares anymore, and it kind of sucks. And so when the scene started with him coming out of the projector in the first film, I thought I was about to shit my pants, because I genuinely was like, whoa, holy shit, like, and I got a good scare, and afterwards, like, I kind of had like the heavy breath, and I'm like, whoa, that was scary. And that, I hadn't had that for a long time. So I was kind of like really expecting, with these people being adults, like, they're going to turn the scares up to 11, and I was expecting a lot more scare, but it didn't really come. Like, a lot of the horror came from the personal experiences of the characters, and you know that like that's like, yeah, it's hard to explain without talking about spoilers, but yeah, a lot of the horror came from like callbacks in the first movie, with regards to like, yeah, specific character development. And I feel that was less scary, but it was still intense. Case in point, like the scene with Bill.
Yeah.
The Bill. So Bill has a scene back at the gutter where Georgie went missing, and I'm not going to say what happened, but that scene was intense. Like, I was really invested in it, but it didn't. There was no horror for me. It was all just getting like character investment. So that's what a lot of this movie tends to be. But I really enjoyed it. I still like I like the first one more, but I did like the second one a lot.
I do also feel like when you're doing a horror movie, if you have kids in it and putting them in the situation, that just makes it more scary itself.
Yeah,
it's just that sort of thing. So having the adult version of them going through that, it's like, they're adults, whatever. But having kids go through it, it's like, oh shit, look, there's a kid going through that. Oh, imagine what's going through his head. Fuck, that's scary. Imagine if I was doing that. And as an adult, you're like, adults going through it, whatever.
So funnily enough, I actually said this to someone, and I can't remember who it was. May have been you. But like,
me.
The first film, like, when you go and watch the first film, to a degree, you're watching it from the viewpoint of a kid. So you kind of remember what it feels like to be that age, knowing how you could get scared at that age. And then you cut for 27 years later, these characters are adults. We're all adults, apparently. And like, I sit there and I watch it, and like, I would know for a fact as an adult I wouldn't be scared. Like, if I had to, I'd ball up and punch the shit out of the clown if I had to. Whereas a kid, like, you kind of feel this helplessness, and that's how good that those kids were in the first movie, is that they all showed you that, to a degree, they all are kind of helpless, but they're just trying to do the best that they can as children. Whereas these adults have like every means possible to them. But yeah, like, I get exactly what you mean.
Yeah. I think if you've had a chance to read Jesse's review on the Pixel Pop Network website, he hit a number of nails on the head, and I agree with him in a lot of what he had to say. I agree, this film is not as scary or as terrifying as the first one, but at the same time, it's the best version of it that exists, in so much as the fault might not lie with the film, but more with the source material.
Yeah, 100%.
And so,
I 100% agree with that.
You know, the thing is, the first film, the horror is more of a slow build. It's psychological. There's more of that, what the hell's that in the background kind of thing going on. There's more unknown, and of course when something's unknown it's more scary. This time around, you know what what's sort of going on, what it is. There's more understanding. The more you understand something, the less scary it is, and so the film relies more on jump scares rather than sort of psychological scares. And I think most of us are desensitized to that jump scare, especially when you're watching the film and you can see it coming. You know it's about, and it just, I don't think I jumped once through the whole film, because not only was it jump scares, they were just predictable jump scares. Now, I don't want to take anything away. I think Bill Skarsgård's portrayal of Pennywise is outstanding, and I think he's definitely on his way to a hugely successful acting career, like most of the Skarsgård family. Likewise, I think, McAvoy, Mustafa Hader, Chastain, all of them did a pretty good job in terms of the acting. I have no complaints there at all. The film itself, the color grading and things like that they did with it, and to give it a look, the music, all that was really good. There was nothing I could really fault there. It's just, I've read the book a long time ago, and they sort of tried to stick close to the book in some aspects, deviate in others. But at the end of the day, there's that repeating joke, and it's not really a spoiler, but there's the repeating joke about, how the ending is shit. And obviously that's a play on King himself.
I was going to bring
that up, yeah.
I was going to bring that up later.
Right, and I've personally have always felt that way too with most of King's long stories, his novels, that, he struggles to end them. And I've mentioned that more than once. And I do know that he did sit down and rewrite the ending of this film. And I'm not going to tell you how, because that's a spoiler, but, there was some changes made, and I feel they probably had to be made. As much as perhaps Puritans of the book would disagree and hate me for saying this, I feel this film probably should have deviated further. And I don't want to say too much more because of spoilers, but for the sake of... I would have given up the sort of authenticity to the book for the sake of a better film, if that makes sense. And again, I know that would upset some people, but I think I would have put the film ahead of being loyal to the book. It's not bad. Should you go and see it at the cinema? If you're a Stephen King fan, a Puritan, certainly do so. If you're a certain person that goes to the movies every fortnight to catch a flick, by all means watch it. However, I think for most people, you'll be just as happy to wait for the home release. I'm probably going to give it, say, a 6.5 out of 10. And again, that's just purely because it's supposed to be a horror film. And I wasn't particularly horrified. And despite the performances of the adults, I think the kids still, by and large, stole the show.
100%.
Yeah, and I think, and kind of going back to what I was saying before, I think it's because of that whole... There's an element of helplessness with the kids' side of the story.
Yeah.
And you feel that. And you go back to remembering what it felt like to be a kid and only imagining what you would have done as a kid in that situation. And you know that you would have been way more shit scared than what these little brats would have been. That's how I felt watching that movie anyway. And that's kind of how I feel going back and watching a lot of those movies where it's like kids having to deal with a threat.
Yeah, well, its IMDb score has crept up to 7 out of 10, but it's still sitting on about 58 for Metacritic. So it's, obviously that seems to be about sort of, a lot of people feeling the same way. All right, so there's spoiler-free thoughts. If you haven't seen the film, scroll on down to the timestamps below and jump ahead to our topic of conversation, which will be, scary films and what makes them scary. But otherwise, if you have seen it or you don't care for spoilers, we're going to jump into some spoilers now. Let's just keep the rotation. Ethan, spoiler thoughts?
Pretty much very similar to my spoiler-free ones. As we touched on before, the whole thing about the ending. I love that was just a riff on Stephen King in general. As soon as they mentioned that at the start, I just cracked up laughing. I'm like, okay, this is just riffing on Stephen King, and the fact that, spoiler, because we're in there, Stephen King appears in the movie and makes fun of himself. I thought that was absolutely fucking great.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably my favorite part of the whole film. Yeah. Was he's self-referencing the fact that he can't write an ending.
Yeah, and then the part with McAvoy his character and the kid that he tries to save, I was like, oh man, this is pretty fucking shitty. Especially how that kid goes out as well. That was probably one of the only things that sort of like got to me where I'm like, oh man, this is actually fucking shit. Other than that, sorry, carry on.
So with that, right? Again, I haven't read the book, so is that part of Bill's arc that he has to save another kid and he doesn't?
I don't remember.
Toby can definitely jump.
No, it's been a long time since I read it, but not that I recall.
So I feel like that arc should have gone to Richie, because Richie's the one that meets the kid. Like, I understand why they did it, but it just felt out of place. Like, if anything, the kid should have, like, just by the idea of script writing that I have in my head.
I think it's just a case of Bill felt responsible for his brother, and then he's another young boy, and he's got a chance to make a difference.
Yeah, but like, remember, Bill sees him for the first time, acknowledging Richie at the Chinese takeaway place, and then doesn't see him again until he's riding the bike and sees him at his old house.
Yeah.
So like initially the kid was brought in only to be part of Richie's story, but then ended up becoming part of Bill's story instead. Like,
I guess because they just didn't want to have why have like two separate kids. I guess they just that was probably a convenience loop there more than anything.
Yeah, that's the one thing I thought that was a bit weird.
So can you explain to me how? All right, you go into the bathroom and some guy jumps you, stabs you in the head. You turn around and kill him, and then you make a crack about his haircut. What?
Listen, I'm for it.
What? Yeah, the humor in this was just misplaced. There was some good stuff, but there was way too much forced, misplaced humor in this, and I have no idea why. In terms of like horror pacing too, like you say, like the kids being scary. In the first film, you can have all of the kids together, and it is still scary, right? Even though they're all together. In the second one, obviously, the whole point of it is they're all together and then they defeat it. So what this film, and inherently, of course, the book does, is it separates them all. So instead of being, all versus Pennywise, it's Pennywise versus one, and then you go into the next character, and you're sort of watching the film and you're going, oh, okay, shit, here we go. All right, well, now we have to have character 4's solo moment. Oh, now, look, here we go, character 5's solo moment. And it was just sort of, it was almost like paint by numbers. And again, this is where I'm sort of saying, like, they could have departed from the book a little bit to try and make it a bit more interesting, and it was predictable. Even if you haven't read the book, it was predictable. You could sort of see where everything was going.
I'll kind of fight that, because I think that the big thing about the first film is that each kid was so distinct and was so unique that paying that off essentially with giving them like their own arc in the second film, like, that just made sense. And like, sure, you could have cut it down for time, but I don't know how you could cut down 8 separate arcs more than what they kind of already did. Because even then, like, each character maybe got 3 to 5 minutes, and even at its most, like at 5 minutes a piece, like that's still 40 minutes of a 2.5 hour film.
But it was just sort of like, what happens to one has to happen to the next. Like you just when you had the first couple, you were like, oh, okay, right, now we're just going to move through, 6 characters worth of solo fright scenes, you know what I mean? And it was just one that followed by another. There was no, I don't know, it just felt a little monotonous to me.
But they had to do it though, like, each character had to have their moment for the final part to pay off.
I guess, and again, I think it's just a problem inherent with the original material. And in a book, that would have probably played out a lot better. In a film, because of course in a book, you can read a chapter and put it down. Yeah. In a movie, you're sitting there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like, that's why a lot of books don't translate necessarily well into film. And I would have perhaps liked to have seen them taking a bit more liberty with the film. I liked how they changed his appearance at the end. They kept the sort of the spider design, but they also kept Pennywise. Cool. And I think that made sense, because if you just had the spider, people would have been like, the fuck is this? This makes no sense.
Yeah, like the original Tim Curry one.
Yeah, so that was the way they kind of played into it is that it's not that Pennywise was a spider the whole time. It was this, he was making a form
Yeah,
to be more scary.
Yeah, the lights themselves is what Pennywise is. I don't know why they went and put in the ritual of Chud. Like, I know it's there in the book, but there's so much more that goes on with the ritual of Chud. Like, there's the whole world turtle, or the turtle and all that sort of stuff that made our world.
Well, I think apparently the turtle, because you know how he has that vision where it shows him like how Pennywise came to Earth and all that sort of stuff. Apparently the turtle was in an early version, but during screen tests, seeing a giant floating turtle chase after these fucking lights through space and it crash lands on Earth confused the fuck out of test audiences. Yeah, so they took that part out.
And that's fine, and I think the Chud stuff is probably going to confuse some audience members as well. So much like King's work, where he's gone back and sort of said, hey, look, they're all connected. I wonder if they're trying to do something similar to the films. And by because the turtle, obviously, he's mentioned in other bits of King's work and Dark Tower and all that sort of stuff. I just wonder if they're going to try and loop the films together. And if they're doing that just for the sake of looping them together, then I feel that's going to be a detriment to the films as well.
Well, they do have the turtle there in a few scenes, but not the actual turtle. They just have when it goes to the turtle. Yeah, when the kid goes to their classroom, it zooms in on like a turtle at the start of the scene and things like that. They show the turtle there, they just don't overtly include him that much.
Yeah, I saw as
much as he is.
I just want to touch too quickly. There's been some comments that the film has sort of an anti-gay sentiment to it, and especially with the opening scene, which feels a little detached. And I agree that opening scene does feel detached. It is in the book though, and if you haven't read the book, there's a lot more that follows that scene, which then sort of leads it into the story weave a little better. There's police investigation and court cases and all this sort of stuff. It's not really in there because King wrote to try and be anti-homosexual. The scene where we have the beating and then the man thrown off the bridge into the river at the start of the film is actually based on a real life event that happened.
I was based off a real crime.
Yeah, King was inspired by a crime that had happened, and so put it into the book. And obviously had seen the news report and then thought, well, what if Pennywise was hiding under the bridge when it happened?
Yeah.
The scene is probably a bit more shocking, and of course. How to sort of put this the men in the story are more early 80s homosexual men, and so their appearance is more not with modern perceptions. Does that make what sense? So like in the story, I think the line is actually King writes as his pants were tight enough you could see what religion he was. Right? So it's not the sort of it's more they're wearing more Mardi Gras style clothing, I think is probably a better way to explain it in the book. Right. Like they're overtly homosexual, and that's fine, obviously in 2019. But it's played a little differently. I'm not sure why it's in the movie, because again, you probably could have introduced Pennywise in a better fashion for the movie. But it is in there because it's in the book. As to the undertones of Richie's sexuality, I don't believe that's something. I think that's something new. I don't think that's from memory. It's in the book, because in the book they all sleep. They all sleep with
Beverly.
Beverly. So
So that's actually already been talked about. Apparently, when Muschietti was doing the prep for It 2, when Richie and Eddie in the first film were interacting and stuff, like he kind of got this thing of like, oh, it's like, Richie makes fun of him a lot, and it's kind of like when you see a boy and a girl, like the boy's bullying the girl because he likes her, and that's kind of the vibe he got from it. And he brought it up to Stephen King himself, and even Stephen King was like, like, I've never really thought about it like that. And he kind of got his permission to be like, can I make this change? And it gives Richie like a new dimension to his character, because the whole time he's just making fun of his friend, and that's kind of all you see it as. And then it's not until right at the end where he goes back to the bridge and he carves Eddie's initial, and he's finally able to accept who he is. Which I thought was I thought that was a really cool moment that they did that. So and with Stephen King kind of giving his blessing at the same time to make that character change, I thought it was really cool. So
yeah, so I think the ending was a bit better. They remember rather than forget a second time. I know that Skarsgård has officially stated that he's interested in reprising the role if they ever feel that there's enough fresh material to create a third film.
More or less based on Pennywise's backstory and stuff, though.
Yeah,
flesh that out.
Yeah. Also, it's mentioned in King's other works that the species that Pennywise is, there's more than one. So it would be kind of interesting to see if they're included in the Hulu series, Castle Rock or something like that at one point. So there's room to do stuff with the character, I guess, and you could certainly do, if you wanted to detach from the book, you could go back 27 years before the first book, to the 60s or whatever. Or in this case, if you're basing it on the same timeline as the movie, it could be 27 years before whatever it is, 82, 3 or whatever they did the first movie here. So to be back more in the 60s, so you could there's plenty of room to maneuver. It'd be interesting. So yeah, any other spoilery thoughts before we wrap that up?
No, nothing else.
All right, so let's move into topic of conversation for this fortnight, and that is what makes a scary movie scary, and that's kind of relevant, I think, now that we've sort of talked about It Chapter 2. Let's flip it around, Lucas.
I mean, I'll be honest. There isn't any one particular thing I think you can get to get people scared across the board.
Oh, okay, thanks, Lucas. All right.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. Hope everyone had a good week.
Yeah, we'll catch you next time.
So, I brought it up earlier, but I love horror movies, but the past few years, I haven't, and whether or not that's just haven't found something that scared me enough, or I've just kind of become immune to it. I've lost my ability to be shocked or scared in a film. It Chapter 1 was the very rare exception, and it was because when he jumps out of that projector, I did not see that coming at all. Where it could be try to the only thing I could probably say is maybe tone down on predictability, but even then there were some certain things in It Chapter 2, me not knowing what the fuck was going to happen, where it wasn't predictable, but I still wasn't scared. So that's what I mean in the sense of I think horror and how to make a horror movie more scary is all dependent on the viewer and not what's being offered. Because I could sit through and watch Hostel.
Yeah, but I mean Hostel isn't really a horror.
I'm using Hostel as an example, right?
Sure.
Hostel to
me it's just a gore flick.
Yeah, well, it's basically just
it's not scary. It's just gory.
I can't think of what it's called.
Torture porn.
It's got scary.
Porn, yeah.
It's got scary elements to it. There's one part in I can't remember which one it is. I think it might be the second one, where a woman is just lying there. She's completely naked and she has a scythe, and she's running the scythe down this chick's back. And you're watching it, and you're like, oh no, don't cut her. And I wasn't necessarily scared, but I was more anxious. That
yeah,
and
But that's what torture porn's meant to do. It's meant to make you uncomfortable and anxious, not scare you.
And I wasn't, but there was an element of horror to it, because if you know what the base, how those movies kind of come to be and what those movies are actually about, that is legitimately scary shit that could really happen.
Sure, but that's the fact that it could really happen that's scary, not what's in front of you.
Yeah. But even that scene with the scythe, I was like, holy shit! Not saying that it was scary, but there was this kind of anxiety of is it going to happen? Is she really going to do it? Well,
let's jump over to someone who's all innocent and naive. What makes a scary movie scary, Ethan?
Well, for me, the last
Staying
time
up
I
past
was
your bedtime.
The last time I was actually scared of a movie would be the Paranormal Activity movies, but that's purely because based on things that have happened to me. Well, no, it's because I only find them scary because of things that have happened to me in my real life makes those movies freaky to me. That's the only time I haven't watched a horror movie in a lot. I mean, I watch horror movies, quite often, but I don't get scared for them. Jump scares don't scare me, nothing like that. It's because Paranormal Activity, I've had things like that happen to me, not a lot, but things like that I've seen and witnessed and have happened around me that makes those movies scared for me because I've had it happen to me. That's what makes it scary for me. And Conjuring's close to that, the paranormal ones, ghosts and stuff like that. That's what freaks me out. That's what scares me.
Mm-hmm.
Other
It's
stuff.
interesting you mentioned that because it kind of segues into my, I guess, interpretation of what makes a scary movie scary, and that is often I find it's what's not shown that makes
Yeah,
a film scary.
exactly. I mean, like you look at Paranormal Activity, the first one. That was like
You
an
never
hour
get
and
to
a half
see
long.
anything. You
No,
never
you
see a
see
thing,
it-
but it's scary as hell.
You see a door open and close. You see her get put out of the bed, and then you see them put powder on the ground and then some weird chicken feet, and that damn near scared the fucking shit out of me.
Yep.
And,
Yeah,
and it's
I
also
agree.
more the fact that the movie starts up saying inspired by true events and stuff like that, and I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
I've witnessed fucking similar shit to
Now,
that.
if you're
Freaks me out.
not if you're not the sort of person to have an imagination, those films will do nothing for you, and that's not your fault.
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
criticizing you
Yeah.
for some people are just built differently, right? If you're
Yeah.
not the sort of person to have an overproductive, if you're not the sort of person that grew up with the lights off in your bedroom and then looked at the chair and went, "What the fuck is that?" and had to turn the light on because it looked like a body, but then you realize it's just your jacket on the chair, you're not going to get anything out of those films. They're going to bore the shit out of you, and that's fine. And I think what makes a scary movie scary is you absolutely have to nail the pacing and the tension. You have to build it, and then you have your sort of crescendo, and then you have to build it again. You have to earn the scare, so to speak. I feel, and people like James Wan have realized that, and he knows how to build up and build the tension. He doesn't just jump scare you for no fucking reason. He sort of leads you in and builds it up, and he does it well in most of his films. So that's important. But again, it's like the original Blair Witch is not for a lot of people. A lot of people watch that and say it's not scary. But again, it doesn't show you anything. It just relies on your imagination. And if you can use that, it becomes scary. Applying it to it, I won't go into spoilers because people may have jumped forward here. To me, one of the scariest scenes of it was shown in that first trailer where she goes to the house and there's the old woman. Because it's not just bang in your face. It's a moment that is weird, and you're thinking, "What's going on?" This is you're in danger, but it's not in your face. But it's that sort of slow, tense building scene. And so those sorts of things where you can only imagine what is going on, you can only guess what is going on, rather than and in regards to Pennywise, to me he is scarier when you don't understand what it is, when you don't understand where it comes from, when you can't explain it, when you can't quantify it, when it's just a psychopathic fucking clown.
It's
that's
that
when
fear
it's
of the
scary.
unknown.
That is when
And
it's scary.
you've got no way to debunk it. Once you debunk something, it no longer has that hold. There's no longer that fear for it.
Now, if you go and watch a horror film and it's let's say we're not spoiling it. Let's say it's a scary fucking, I don't know, 6 foot tall rat. That's fucking scary, right? But then when you just go, it ate some fucking plutonium and mutated, well then you just go buy a fucking machine gun and you just blow it up, right? Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
It's not. As soon as you explain something, it's not scary anymore. So I think the trick with a horror film is not to explain it, or to at least explain as little as possible.
And I feel like that's when the Paranormal Activity movies went downhill more, because each movie they explained why this is happening, where it came from. Whereas the first one was just fine on its own. It built up the suspense. It did it all. At the end, it was showy. Still explained absolutely nothing.
Yep, the credits roll and you just go, "What the fuck did I just watch?"
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right, and that's fine. And yeah, look, I am a big fan too of scenes where you're watching the main character and then out of the corner of your eye you see something sort of move in the background, but you're not sure what. Those kind of little things done well.
Give me a fright. I would say Paranormal Activity was the last one that scared me. The last one that unsettled me was Hereditary. If you've seen Hereditary, it's kind of like what you're talking about, how you see things at the corner of your eye and all this sort of stuff. It's very weird. It doesn't explain a whole lot, but it was a very unsettling movie.
Yep.
Yeah, Hereditary looks like fucked up.
Yeah, watch it. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's unsettling.
Insidious was pretty bloody good, the original one.
Yeah, second one wasn't as good.
It lost a bit, and I also, admittedly, the very first time I watched it, The Woman in Black with Daniel Radcliffe that got goosebumps out of me as well. The Conjuring, James Wan.
Yeah.
The first one, like, the same thing. Like, the whole, there's a lady on top of my wardrobe. What lady? And then the camera pans up, and sure enough, there's this fucking lady, and you're just like, that, even thinking about it just gives me goosebumps now. Like, because the scene is sort of, you're just not expecting it all. It's not a jump scare. It's just, you were absolutely not expecting it, because in most films, the camera would pan up, there'd be nothing there, and you're just like, oh, well, the kid's, fucking, being a kid. But then when it pans up and there's actually someone on top of the fucking wardrobe, that's when it just turns everything upside down.
The one that got me on that was when she's hanging at the washing and the sheet flies off the thing and it just folds around like an invisible shape. I was like, oh, okay, hold on a minute. What the fuck is that? And there was nothing leading up to it. It just happened, and I'm like, okay, that's a bit freaky. And
it's in the middle of the day, and there's no insidious music, and there's nothing tension. It's just bang, it happens. Yeah. So kudos to people like Wan for the way they do this films. But yeah, again, it's don't make your scares predictable. And like Lucas said with the first It, he wasn't ready for it to jump out of the projector, and that's what scared him. It's be unpredictable. Don't rely on the jump scares. Don't reveal too much. Don't explain too much. I think are probably all fairly key points in creating something that's actually scary, in my limited experience. So I've never made a scary movie.
I might say something that I think will, just thinking it in my head makes me feel like I'm like being this elitist snobby dick, but which I try not to be. But I find that a lot of horror movies, or just horror in general, is done well when it's not done in English.
Yeah, I mean, that's because I think a lot of Hollywood films suffer from tropes. So there's nothing wrong with looking at in Japan, for instance, the reason why a lot of their villains or the ghosts or whatever have you are small girls is purely cultural, because to them the least intimidating thing you can think of is a small girl. So that's why they make a small girl, a brutal killer. So I guess as you travel the world and look at stuff from, say, Egypt or Germany or France or wherever, you're going to get their customs and their sort of interpretation of what horror is. Yeah, fair call. Absolutely. Again, probably begin though, because you're so used to and so desensitized by American horror, you've seen what it's got. You can predict it now. It's become a trope. It's become cliche. And then, having a Japanese film or a Chinese film or whatever come in and just throw something different at you, it's that you weren't expecting it. It was something different, and that's what's unsettled you.
For sure.
And I think that's what you look for, and that's what you want to be looking for with and I mean, that would have been a part of what happened with It, is, we came into part 2 and we'd already been scared by Pennywise, so who's a little less scary this time. That was just unavoidable, no matter how good the second film was, because again, you become familiar and it stops being frightening. Yeah, and it's the same with all of them. I mean, despite Nightmare on Elm Street obviously, getting hugely derailed and turned into almost a comedy, by the time you get to film 3 or 4 in any of these long-standing Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees, any of these characters, eventually you just become commonplace and they stop being frightening.
Yeah, you can even say that about Evil Dead.
Yeah, any of these...
That's straight up. Evil Dead just straight up turned into a comedy.
Yeah, although I think that already sort of happened well and truly with the second one, where it stopped taking itself seriously. But yeah, anything where it just the story keeps going, it's just, you become more and more desensitized. So, and I think, again, I know I've mentioned his name a few times, but that's testimony to directors like James Wan and probably Guillermo del Toro and a few others out there that really...
It's just a matter of understanding the material and understanding the genre. Knowing what works, knowing what doesn't. Yeah,
and being prepared to take risks. And I mean, both of those directors and others have, as much as they've had successes, have also had some pretty crummy or average films as well. And you've got to take risks.
Case in point, specifically, like a guy that I champion big time is James Wan, purely because I thought when I saw Saw for the first time, that was genuinely one of the most. I genuinely was surprised by how well that movie was put together, because at the time there was nothing like it. So, anytime I've seen James Wan's name on something, I will go to it. He made a better horror movie in Aquaman with the trench than pretty much any horror movie that come out in those last 2 years. Like, that whole trench scene in Aquaman was fucking terrifying. And it was in a superhero movie.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely, like, the horror movies that tend to stand the test of time are the ones that, and when we think about some of the best horror films, like, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, we talk about scary, we're only really talking about the first one. And it's the same with a number of these other sort of series. It's the first one that's the scary one, because, again, it's that we're not ready for it. It's that sort of, Conjuring, and then you had sort of, you've got, like, 3 Annabelle films now? And not bad, but it's just gonna lose its grip on you each and every time. I think the best horror films are the ones where there's only one of them, or we just only really watch the first one and we kind of ignore the rest. I've probably watched the first Nightmare on Elm Street lots of times, but it's not true of the whole series. I've probably watched the whole series only 2 or 3 times, because it's nowhere near as good. So,
come on, you can't tell me you've watched Jason 10 like 1,500 times.
I've watched all of them. I own them all on DVD, but I haven't watched them all 1,500 times. No, they're not that good.
Jason 10 is one of the best Friday the 13th movies ever made.
But yeah, I have a large horror selection, and I as a teenager, I rented every horror film in my local video library. I literally started with A and worked my way through to Z. And I watched a lot of horror. So, it takes a lot to frighten me now. But when I do, it's delicious. I love getting goose flesh. I love watching a film and then having to turn the lights on at the end. I still get a buzz out of that. I really do. It's just few and far between. So, yeah. All right. Well, we might I think we could probably throw that question up on our Facebook page. Like, what makes a scary movie scary? And I would really keen to see what other people think, because that's a good question, and I think we're going to get some really varied answers too. So I'm going to throw it up on our Facebook, and we'll talk about the results when we have our next podcast. Because I reckon that'd be really interesting. All right. Well, what's coming out in the next fortnight, Ethan? What have we got on Netflix and Amazon and cinemas and all that jazz?
Netflix, we have Disenchantment Part 2 is out this Friday, along with the Between Two Ferns.
Mm-hmm.
A number of other movies.
We've got the Sacha Baron Cohen thing, which has just come out, so people should be checking that out.
That came out like last week, a week before.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We've got, what's the new show that just dropped on Amazon too? I haven't watched that yet either. The one with Orlando Bloom.
Oh, Carnival Row.
Carnival Row.
Yeah, I haven't watched that yet. But
well, what's the date today? 16th. Well, Hustlers came out last week. If you want to go to about strippers, go watch that.
That's
Cardi B.
That's got, what's her face?
Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, J-Lo, yeah.
Yeah. Ad Astra is out next week.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
Yep,
1917 as well.
Actually, it's out this week.
Right, that's the space flick. Yep.
Yep. There's Rambo: Last Blood.
Okay, yeah, all right. My interest in that waned with every trailer, but that's good to know that it's coming out. If I'm really bored, I might go see it.
That's about all.
That Good Boys movie's out too.
Oh, The Good Boys, Seth Rogen's new movie. That's all that's out between now and next podcast.
No, we're missing one. Like, we missed a perfect opportunity. Scary stories to tell in the dark.
Oh yeah, that is too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, since we're talking about horror movies.
I like how
Next
that's
week.
a kids movie, but it looks scary as fuck.
It's not a kids movie.
No, it's hard R in the US.
Yeah, all right. But isn't the books? Are the books kids' books though?
No.
You're probably
that's
thinking
different
of
one.
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Sorry.
But they dropped the trailer for that. We didn't talk about that, but they dropped the trailer and it's got Ben from the first It in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, if I get really bored, I might punch Jesse in the dick until he takes me to see Rambo. That seems like a good way to kill some time.
Okay.
But he appreciates that kind of foreplay.
I mean, well, more or less, you want to go watch that movie. That's all I'm saying it over. But sorry.
If you want another opinion on it, as I said, head over to the Pixpop Network website. Jesse's already done a pretty lengthy review, and I feel that it's largely on point. So it's probably worth a read. It's not spoilery, so if you haven't seen the film, go and have a read. Huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters who help make this podcast possible. Your contributions every month go towards, our SoundCloud account, t-shirts for packs, web hosting, all that sort of useful stuff. And of course, thank you to everybody else that tunes in and validates us and makes us feel slightly important. We appreciate you listening. We'll be back next fortnight with God knows what. We'll make up some bullshit to try and make it entertaining and interesting. Until then, have a great fortnight, and we'll catch you next time. bum 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 bum